I kind of look at us like the AWS kind of like news. We bring you the news, announcements, launches, demos of AWS, some of the coolest things happening at summits, events. I'm Tabitha Bennett. I'm the executive producer of AWS On Air. So I always want to hear from you to see how you want to make the program better. Also, the one thing about AWS On Air is we really love to use our chat. We have subject matter experts from each of these teams in the chat and comments waiting there for you to make sure that they answer your one-on-one questions. And what I want to say is really important is, again, we talked about asking questions. If you're at the booth, if you're, watching here because you couldn't attend, which is okay, that's what we're bringing it here for, put it in the chat, put it in the comments. We have people here to answer. As I said, I'm Tabitha Bennett, executive producer, but this is my co-host, Alana.
Hello, I am Alana Kelton. I am a senior product manager on the launch marketing team for AWS, and I've been here at the desk with Tabitha all morning so far. We're going to be here all day with you guys as we move between our guests and our floor with AM, our floor time on the expo floor. So we've had a really good morning so far. Very informative, kind of awesome in that way. And we have a friend with us.
Yes, and because you know that this is live, honestly, our friend is trying to get hooked up to make sure that he could show you the demo. We want to make sure that we show you the latest and greatest, and thank you to our awesome crew here. But you were saying you have a friend?
Yes, I have a friend who we'd like to be introduced to you now.
Awesome.
Tell us who you are.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. My name's Meet Bagdev. I am a principal product manager at AWS, and I lead product for Amazon Keyspaces. We have some really cool Keyspaces content to
Okay,
talk
wait a
about
minute.
today.
This is fairly new to me. What is Amazon Keyspaces?
Yeah, sure. I can talk more about that. Amazon Keyspaces is our fully managed, serverless, globally distributed Cassandra-compatible database service. So if you are looking to use Cassandra, or you want to use Cassandra in AWS at scale, Keyspaces is your solution. We kind of like to talk about Keyspaces through 4 pillars. The first one, like I talked about, Cassandra compatibility. So Keyspaces is wire protocol compatible with Cassandra. So if you're using existing Cassandra tools or drivers, you can continue to use Keyspaces without having to learn, any kind of new language sets, drivers, SDKs,
Nice.
or tools.
That keeps the learning levels down, so you can immediately get started with it.
Correct. One of the key benefits of Keyspaces is that there are no tombstones, read repairs, or compactions to manage. These are all Cassandra pain points that we've heard from customers, and that's one of the reasons we built Keyspaces, is to address some of those pain points. So when you're using Keyspaces, it's fully serverless. You don't need to worry about instances, setting up these compaction strategies, garbage collection, all of these things that you sometimes have to worry about when you're self-managing Cassandra. So one of the things our customers absolutely love about Keyspaces, and something we like to kind of talk about when introducing the service.
I do have to say, anything named Tombstone, like if you're having to not work with that, I don't. I'm sorry if you have to deal with tombstones. I don't want to deal with tombstones.
Nobody does.
Wow,
really.
Nobody wants to deal with those.
It's a scary term.
Yeah.
Dealing with databases, especially something like Cassandra, it is something you do have to take care of, but not on Keyspaces. So.
I love and the other thing he said was serverless, and why is that important?
Serverless is awesome all the time because of its cost efficiency and time savings.
Yeah,
Always.
totally.
Yep.
And with Keyspaces, you get scale to 0. So you get true serverless. If you're not using reads or writes, you're actually not paying for anything on Keyspaces. So you can kind of turn the knob down all the way to 0, which is, I personally think, really cool.
Awesome. Now, we had asked our earlier guest, it's great that there's these products out there, but who uses it? Why? Why would customers want to use this?
Yeah, great question. So we have, let me maybe talk about some of our customer stories. So one of the customers, we're at the London Summit, Monzo Bank. It's a bank in the UK. They're one of our users of Keyspaces, actually migrated about 500 terabytes from Cassandra to Keyspaces, which which I think is phenomenal.
That's a lot of data.
It's a lot of data.
Wow.
And a great testament to the folks at Monzo
Yeah.
kind of having pulled that off. So we see use cases across kind of verticals. Monzo being one kind of in fintech. With their migration, they were able to reduce their operational burden. They were able to
Yes.
kind of get away from self-managing those Cassandra databases,
Yeah.
which is usually not fun for
It's
most
a
folks.
heavy lift.
It's a
I
heavy
don't
lift.
care what industry you're in. When you're managing data and databases, it is a heavy lift regardless.
Exactly. So they're one of our customers.
Love
PwC, when I think in 2020, 2021 during COVID, actually built a contact tracing application. They used Keyspaces for that as well. I think one of their key requirements was they wanted to process a very high number of writes. We're talking about billions and billions of writes per day, because any event kind of for contact tracing.
Yeah, you're having to rewrite new data, new
All the time.
information all the time. Maybe this person, and yeah, that's important too, because sometimes that write functionality can be very slow.
Exactly. So they're one of the users of Keyspaces, and they looked at various solutions, and I think what they really wanted was, we talked about serverless. That was
Yeah.
important to them. Kind of pay as you go, because they knew it was going to be bursty, or there'll be busier periods, and then some
Right.
periods will be kind of low. With Keyspaces, they were able to kind of achieve those capabilities.
Well, I
which
can
kind of-
definitely see that, because also if you're talking contact tracing, you're talking like the height of COVID,
Correct.
when people are still traveling, people are still doing things, and people unfortunately are being exposed, and you want to immediately, companies want to let people know. I could see that's huge.
Yep.
And then maybe now it's not as much, so they're not having to have that heavy burden of things.
Exactly. So they're one of our users. I'd also like to talk about Intuit. So Intuit was I think one of our. We actually had a session with them at reInvent last year. Similar to Monzo, I think they had terabytes of data, about 100 terabytes or so,
Right.
which they migrated from Cassandra to Keyspaces with no downtime, kind of in a live migration sense. And they were able to also reduce their operational burden, improve read latency, and essentially kind of for business critical workloads, leverage the database
Love it.
as kind of the rock, right? The one that never fails, is always available, and scales as their workload grows.
Yeah, and I can see, when you're talking Intuit, because, yes, there are large enterprise companies, but you also have smaller, businesses who really rely on Intuit. They're expecting them to, like you said, scale, help them out without kind of like, having that seamless experience, so they're not having downtime. Because we all know in small businesses, time is money, and downtime is too costly at that point.
Yeah,
For sure.
totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anyone's interested in learning more about the material, we have some, I think, things that should be popping up on your screen. We have some links there, so you can always learn more.
Now, I understand that you recently just launched the multi-region. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we talk about multi-region, I do want to touch upon what Keyspaces provides within a single region, because I think
That's important.
That will tee up the story as to why we did this, and
Great.
what kind of benefits we expect customers to utilize. So Keyspaces provides four nines of SLA within a single region, and replicates your data across 3 availability zones automatically. So let's say you write into Keyspaces in US East 1. US East 1 has multiple availability zones. We will keep 3 copies of your data automatically without you having to do anything.
Nice.
We will also have automated backups. So we're always backing up your data as your data is growing. And you can restore this data up to a point in time. Let's say you by mistake deleted your table, you can go back and say, hey, I want to restore up to 5 p.m. on June 7th. You'll be
Nice.
able to go and do that using Keyspaces. So within a region, you get strong business continuity, strong disaster recovery, a pretty solid SLA.
Love it.
However, what a single region cannot provide is resilience from any sort of single region degradation. These are extremely rare events in AWS. Likely will never happen.
Blue moon, but
Yeah.
we
but
can never say never.
Never
I mean,
say
the
never.
Titanic was never supposed to sink. You can never say never.
Exactly. So we have customers who are kind of looking at multi-region resiliency, right? Because they have business critical apps. Your database can absolutely never go down, because there's revenue impact if your
Right.
database goes down. It's
Right.
just kind of top of mind for CIOs, CTOs. So a single region cannot provide that multi-region resiliency.
Right.
It also cannot give you 5 nines of SLA. And for some of our users who have workloads that span the globe,
Yeah.
they actually want to be able to write to the region closest to them. For instance, if you are an e-commerce shop like Amazon, you have users in Europe, you have users in India, you have users in the US.
Yeah.
If your database is in the US and your customers are in India, you're trying to write, that's a lot of
That's
internet.
a lot of time, intermittency. You have things that could just happen.
Exactly.
So basically, what you're saying, and if I'm understanding this, so you have when you first came out, a lot of people were in this single region.
Correct.
And it worked.
Yep.
And it was great. But then when you're talking globally, like when you're shopping at Zara or Amazon or something like that, or if you're an independent company, you want that data a little closer to you, and that multi-region allows you to kind of share that load across, so you can that latency is down to get to your data.
Exactly. And that's why on Monday, June 5th, we added support for Amazon Keyspaces multi-region replication.
Love that. It's a brand new launch.
Yeah.
Right
Brand new
here.
launch.
You've heard it from us.
Fantastic.
We're very excited to bring this to our customers. It's
Yeah.
actually been one of our top feature requests from a broad set of customers as
I
well.
can see why.
With multi-region replication, you get fully managed active replication across the regions of your choice. So you can read and write from any regions across the globe. You get 5 nines of SLA. Replication lag across regions is less than a second, typically
Wow.
less than a second, which
Wow.
is ideal. Most customers need that.
Yeah.
And you get low latency reads and writes globally across all your tables in Keyspaces.
And I
This
find
is
that important.
available in GA. You can go and use this right away.
I love it. Now, I understand that you have a demo for us.
I sure have a demo.
As we all know, we love our demos.
Let me-
And remember, so what we do with these after these events, maybe you couldn't watch now, maybe you're just now joining us and you didn't get to see what was going on or what we talked about. We actually put these up on our YouTube VOD. It is at YouTube AWS Events. You'll see our playlist, AWS On Air. You'll see that it's from what summit, what innovation day, whatever. So you can always come back and see this. So let's see what you have
Let's
there.
dive right into it. Hopefully my screen's working. I'm going to take that
I
as
see
a yes.
screen. We are screen.
All right, great. So to get started, I'm using the AWS Management Console here. I'm in the US East 1 region.
Okay.
I'm just going to go ahead and refresh my console. As you can see, I have 3 Keyspaces here.
Yes.
Keyspaces is essentially a data container, which it's kind of like a database, essentially. It's a logical entity in which you can have multiple tables.
Nice.
So what we're actually going to do is we're going to create a brand new keyspace. I'm going to call it mbh_demo_1.
And you can follow along with
And you
your
could follow
Amazon
along.
Keyspaces.
Exactly. And we have a free trial, by the way. So if you want to
Nice.
use this, it's, we have a
Free is good.
3-month free trial.
Free.
In the console, with this launch, you can now choose between a single region replication strategy and a multi-region replication
Which
strategy.
again, that multi-region is going to keep you safe.
Exactly. So if you have resiliency requirements, we recommend that you now start using multi-region. You can choose the regions that you want to replicate your data to. Since we are in Europe right now, I'm going to say I want to replicate my data across US East 1, which is North Virginia, and Ireland, which is EU West 1. You can select up to 5 replica regions. Just
Nice.
for
Wow.
purposes of the demo, I'm just going to select 1. But we have
Right.
customers who want to do like Asia, Europe, US. You can totally set that up.
Yeah.
We're just going to do 1 just for kind of demo purposes. Scroll down further, you'll see that you can use the console to create a key space, but we'll also show you how to do it from CQL, which is Cassandra's query language. In case you don't want to use the console, you can just copy the CQL command, which is the create key space command that you see right here in the query preview. That's totally fine too, but just for demo, we're going to use the console. Go ahead and hit create key space. And as you can see, now the key space is active. It was
Nice.
created successfully. Once our key space is created successfully, we're going to click on it. We're just going to make sure that replication strategy is indeed multi-region. And now the fun starts. Let's start creating some tables in it.
Oh, tables. Gotta love those.
Yep. It's a concept that's
What's a
been around.
database without a table?
Exactly. It's been out there forever, continues to, exist. And If you have data, you're probably going to have some databases and some tables. So let's go ahead and give our table a name. I'm just going to keep the name the same just for demo purposes.
Okay.
You'll see this pop-up that says it's replicated across 2 regions. Those are the regions that we have. I'm going to go ahead and create some columns. I'm going to have an ID field. And let's make this an integer type.
Okay.
And I'm going to add a salary field. Let's say this is an employees table, right?
Okay.
Just for demo purposes. And I'm going to make this a double. In Keyspaces, you need to define a partition key up front. We will use this partition key to evenly distribute your data across our storage.
Nice.
We do recommend you use an integer field. It gives you a uniquely a field with most number of unique values. Typically tends to be kind of the ID style field because IDs are unique.
That makes sense.
You can customize your settings. I'm just going to go ahead with defaults.
Okay.
There are things that you can turn on and off, but we're just going to go with default. Like we saw on the previous screen, we're using the console here, but if you prefer to use CQL,
Right.
you get a query preview. You can just copy paste that into
I
your.
kind of like that it's all together.
Yep.
And you're not having to switch to multiple windows.
Exactly. That's our goal, just to keep
Yeah.
things all in one
Keep
place.
the individual in the space, able to focus on what they're doing.
Yep. Great. So now our table creation is in progress. It typically takes maybe a few seconds. It's usually pretty fast. What's happening right now is we're creating the underlying resources required for your table. By default, you get a certain number of reads and writes per second.
Nice.
And as your workload grows, we will automatically scale your table out
Nice.
with Keyspaces. So our table was created. Now that our table is created, I'm going to move over to our CQL editor. So now, let's go ahead and insert some records.
Yes.
What I'm going to first do is I'm going to insert some records from the US East 1 region. So if you see this URL, we're in US East 1. And I'm going to insert 3 rows with
Okay.
values 1, 2, 3, and salaries 500, 600, 700. Let's go ahead and run this command. Scroll down, and it was successfully executed. Now let's verify that our data actually was inserted. So again, I'm still in the US East 1 console. I'm just going to run a select star. And there you go. We have 3
Wow.
records in our database.
And this was live, everyone, just so you know.
Live.
Yeah.
But now we want to make sure this data actually reached Europe, right? And
Right.
if you remember, we created a key space which was replicated in Ireland.
Right.
So now let's move over to EU West 1. So if you look at my URL here, we are in EU West 1.
Okay.
And I'm just going to run a select star. Just want to see all the rows in my database. And there you go.
Ta-da!
Wow.
So the data we
Magical.
inserted in US East 1 is now replicated across EU West 1. However, this is active replication. What happens if I insert data from EU West 1?
Yes.
Will that show up in US? So we also want to go do that.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go to the EU West 1 query editor, and I'm just going to highlight the endpoint here once again so everyone can see that. And now I'm going to insert 3 more rows with values 4, 5, and 6, and salaries 800, 900, and 8,000. Let's go ahead and run this command. It says it's successfully completed. Let's go ahead and verify whether we actually see that data in US now. I'm going to go ahead and run a select star again. And now we have 6 records. So what I
Nice.
just showed you is we have 2 regions in our multi-region key space, and we're able to insert into one, read from the other, insert from the other, and read from the former. So it's active. We often get asked questions on how we handle conflicts. So
Yes.
we use the last writer wins philosophy here. So every write that you make has a timestamp attached to it at the cell level. So
Nice.
in a table, you have rows and columns, and kind of at the intersection of it, you have a cell. So as you insert that data, every cell gets a write time, a write timestamp, and we will use that write timestamp to resolve conflicts. Let's say your two regions are modifying the same kind of piece of data.
Right.
We will see which one has the most latest timestamp, and we will kind of do a reconciliation to
Nice.
get the last writer to win.
So you get real-time updates, real-time data. You know that is the latest that headquarters wanted you to know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That
And
level of granularity is like key, right? Because
Yeah.
you're getting to that smallest piece of data that you
Yeah.
can get to for that
Exactly.
right time.
And I think the main thing to kind of talk about here is this reconciliation process is automatic. So
Nice.
customers don't need to worry about it. It just happens automatically. There's no impact to their application's performance or any of that.
Yeah, and once they set up those regions the first time, that's it.
That's it.
You set it up, it's good to go.
You set it up, you start inserting data, deleting data, whatever you need to do. We'll sync it all up. Any sort of divergence, we'll fix it all up for you. And all of that is fully managed with Keyspaces.
Do you provide for customers that maybe they know they want that multi-region replication, but they're not sure which regions that they should focus on? Do you have like guidance for that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So generally, customers who are setting up multi-region for disaster recovery, we recommend setting up their regions closest to their users. So for instance, if you're a business that primarily operates in Europe, with all your users in Europe, you probably want to set up multi-region resiliency with different EU regions.
Okay.
Doesn't make a
Nice.
lot of sense for you to have a region in Asia or a region in the US.
Right.
If you're a global customer, where you have customers across the globe, and you actually do have cases where you want to, let's say, query
Yeah.
data across the globe, yeah, then you can have kind of regions set up where your users are. The general rule of thumb is if your application is in specific regions, it's good to have your database close to those regions or in those regions.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
So that would be kind of our suggestion.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Love it. We have Waleed, and if I say your name wrong, I'm so sorry. How does the indexing work in this case?
So in Keyspaces, you essentially use your partition key. So once you set up your partition key, that kind of also acts as an index if you must for lookups. So if you're doing lookups across your partition key, we essentially know which underlying partition to kind of go look for your data on.
Nice.
So unlike other databases, Keyspaces doesn't support indexing. It's a distributed database.
Yeah.
So we essentially have the concept of a partition key.
Nice.
So you essentially run your queries along a partition key for low latency read and write throughput.
That's awesome. And unfortunately, we're at time, but I know customers want to know how to get started.
Yeah, totally.
Most important thing.
Yeah, so I think as I showed you, you can get started from
Your
the
console.
console. Yep. We also have a blog that we've released, and if you just look up multi-region
We'll drop that in
replication,
the chat as well,
Yeah,
so
we'll-
you have that link.
yeah, you can kind of go through that blog. We have a nice kind of getting started workflow on that. And generally speaking, Keyspaces is self-service, so we have lots of rich kind of content
Awesome.
on our documentation that customers are able to use. But the best recommendation we have is just head over to the Keyspaces console. The URL is in front of you, and start creating some tables. It's free to use for
Free to
3
use.
months. It's serverless, so if let's say you use it for a day and you're not using it, we're not going to bill you. It's not like
Awesome.
you forgot to delete an instance.